I've tested like 100 ads. None of them have worked or scaled. Where do you go from there?
I need to know the bigger picture. So we'll do some sort of audit. I'll dive right into the Meta ad account and I'll look at the top performing ads. Does it pass the Kristan test? Is it going to stop my scroll? If it is, what about it? And if it isn't, what would I do differently?
I just want to jam on creative strategy for a bit. So I had a chance to watch one of the trainings you did and I loved it. And not only that, but like I've had the chance to see you come into accounts and make a few ads and have a really high hit rate of those ads working. So I'm like, all right, I need to see like, how is Kristan doing this? So I have a little bit idea, but I just kind of want to get nerdy for a bit. So I love creative strategy. I think I live and breathe this stuff. But one of the things I love to hear from you is just like how your mind works, because when you come in, you look at a brand, you see things others don't. So let's just start there. Like, what are some of the things that you first look at when you're trying to figure out, like, for example, why isn't a brand's creative working?
Great question. So I sometimes feel like a mad scientist, and I've had to figure out a way to put everything on paper, of course, because we're building and training. So when I look at a brand, immediately I actually just think, do I like this ad? Do I like this content? I can't even help that. I don't switch that on. It's a case of, if I look at it, I think of myself as the consumer. And I think that's the first important step that I think most people make a mistake on. I've also worked with brands directly and with agency. And I think, unfortunately, on the brand side, you're very connected to your product. You're very protective of what you do. And I think you can lose sight of, is this actually good enough for an audience member to stop scrolling? So I will immediately think of, is this person going to stop for this?
So yeah, does it pass the Kristan test? Like, would you stop your scroll? Okay.
Essentially, that's what it is. And for me, I think that's good because I know there's a level of subjectivity because I'm a female. I might be interested in more things than other things, but I will still keep that objective lens. So I do believe that you can still have that lens across brands and across industries. And it could also just come down to the fact that I'm super passionate about what I do. So maybe that's why I feel like I can still have that lens across industries. But yes, we can say, does it pass the Kristan test? Is it going to stop my scroll? And if it is, what about it? And if it isn't, what would I do differently? Is the initial thought.
Can people develop that objectivity? Because I think as a creative strategist, I feel like over time, through experience, we develop how can we put ourselves in the customer's shoes and somehow like compartmentalize in our brains, like trying to have some objectivity when we're looking at it too. But I think that's difficult for a lot of people. Can that be developed? And how do you think that can be developed?
That's a great question, because that's where, I mean, I even just told you in my own way, I was like, I know that you're probably thinking, is that objective or subjective? So I think it's hard. It's not easy, but I think if you also hold yourself accountable for that. So you need to remember that you've got a job to do. So hold yourself accountable. And then I would say it comes with probably developing some sort of framework or process around it. So not just relying on yourself all the time. And then stress testing. So just because it doesn't pass the Kristan test doesn't mean it's actually strong. Now I need to stress test it. So that would probably be the next step. So to remove objectivity, I think it comes through, like I said, some sort of process or framework and then a stress test.
I see. Well, let's jump into the framework then, just because I've had the pleasure of watching you come in and, like, for example, like, be transparent, like some brands that things weren't tracking on very well. You came in, figured out, all right, brand, voice, visuals, and then things just started crushing. So like, let's go through that framework. So let's say I'm a brand. We just started working together. I've tested like 100 ads. None of them have worked or scaled. Where do you go from there?
I've developed a framework from this, but this was what I just did and had to somewhat systemize it. So I need to know the bigger picture. I need to understand what is going on. So if you're telling me, okay, you've tested 100 ads and it doesn't even matter what industry you're in, I need to know the bigger picture. What is going on? So that's, again, having a strategic lens and trying to lose that subjectivity. So we'll do some sort of audit. And this can be, I mean, your process can vary when it comes to this, but I'll dive right into the Meta ad account and I'll look at the top performing ads. And I try to keep it simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I look at what ads are driving the most purchases. Then I will look at, from that, I'll dissect the ad copy, I'll dissect the visual, and I'll try and get a good sample size. It has to be at least 10. There can't be less than 10 ads, and you can do more for sure. Then what you do is you look at, what is it about this ad? How does it make you feel? So I'll just start writing a bunch of notes, like rough notes in like a spreadsheet. And I'll look at the hook in the actual ad copy, or like let's say the headline, and then the actual creatives hook. And if there's a video, there should be some sort of hook up front. Maybe it's a person talking, maybe it's a beauty shot, maybe it's just a lot of editing going on that keeps you hooked in. So any sort of visual hooks too. And then what I do is I try and break it down when it comes to breakthrough advertising. I want to understand, what is this evoking from like a desire perspective? What does it make me feel like? What are we tapping into for an audience's desire? And when I say desire, it's like, I want this. And there's a pain attached to it if they don't get it. And there's also a gain attached to it if they do get it. So it's just trying to evoke that feeling of like, where does this fit within desire? And then I do that across all the ads. Then what I want to look at is...
Real quick, can you define mass desire? Because like we know the term, because like we've studied it very deeply. Not many people, this is like a new term for some people. So I'd kind of hear like, how would you break that down for someone who's not like experienced like us?
Absolutely. So I know this is going to probably sound a little bit more like what we would study, but it is something really easy to understand if you're at least in the industry. So mass desire is a universal need or want. It is not something that marketers can force or create or engineer. It is something that people already want and need. And that may sound simple, but it's really not. Because again, what I said earlier, people get too protective of their brand, they get too protective of their product, and they also think they know what people want and need. But really, just understand what it is and then tap into that. It really is as simple as just listening, understanding your audience, and knowing what they want.
Awesome. Okay. So we got that. So going back, what I think I'm hearing you say is you do a full audit of the ad account, the ads, what's working, the best hooks. Then you dive into, is there a mismatch between what's being advertised and what people want? Okay. So
Correct.
what would be the next step after that?
So the next step after that is we've now had a good idea, of what's performing, what's driving the most purchases. I now want to have a look at the creator diversity health of the account. So what that means is I want to make sure I don't only look at top performers, because we could have in some instances where the top performers that drive the purchases are all video or are all statics. What about the other content in the account? Because the brand could very well be trying and they could have a mix of media. So we don't want to miss that too. So then what I do is I don't just look at top performers, but I will look at a snapshot of the ads that are in the accounts, and I'll literally take screenshots of the video, of the statics, of the carousels, and put it all into the same spreadsheet so I can keep tracking and get an idea of like, okay, is there a good healthy mix of the video versus static versus carousel? Are they only leaning on video, or are they only leaning on static? Because every bit of media has a job. And we must remember that, because I think what I see mostly happening is founders or brand managers get influenced by what's being said in the industry, and they might hear, we have to just do video. And video definitely has a place. That's something I will always hang my hat on. I'm like, can every single campaign please just have one video element? But it's not always what the account is needing in that time. So we need to make sure if there is video, there are statics, there's carousels, DPAs as well. Like there's all these things we need. So I want to get a good idea of the health of the creator diversity. So then once I've got that, I have a good snapshot of the bigger picture, which I started off by saying is why I wanted to do my audit. Once I've done that audit, I then have, a bit of a foundation to look at. And I think that is objective. So now I don't have a founder in my ear telling me what they think. I don't have anyone else in my team telling me what they think. It's very objective. So we've got our audit, and now we can move to the next step, which is trying to figure out where are they within awareness levels. So awareness levels it's a bit of jargon, so I want to just touch on that too. So awareness levels is referencing Eugene Schwartz's breakthrough advertising, the king of advertising, as some would say. So we need to make sure we have an idea of what's happening with the awareness levels, because more often than not, clients unfortunately over-index on, I would say, closer to middle of funnel or bottom of funnel. At least the clients we
Yes.
work with, they're not really looking at audiences who are, completely unaware that they even have a problem at this stage.
Real quick, define the 5 levels of awareness.
Of course, yes. So 5 levels of awareness are unaware, then you've got your solution aware, you've got your problem aware, product aware, and most aware. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think most brands probably position their products to like fully aware, product aware, maybe solution aware, but like the other
Yeah,
two, they're like, don't even, because they don't understand that concept. So I think maybe
exactly.
you could talk about that. Like, why do you, from your experience, why do you feel like most people get stuck focusing on like the middle of funnel or bottom of funnel in their advertising?
For sure. From my experience and the clients we've worked with, and like I said just now, more often than not, they're not even looking at unaware, or like you said, maybe even solution aware is not even happening at that point. And that's because, to be honest with you, I think they've gotten advice. They are doing their best to run their own ads. And you would think e-commerce, I need to make sales, which is of course true. So they go right into sales, offers, discounts, anything that they think that everyone knows about their product. They forget that there's a whole market out there who is completely unaware they even have a problem, first of all, that the product can solve. Or second of all, that the product to them is just, it's not come up yet. So most clients or most brands are operating in the space where they think people actually know about their product, which is the first mistake. It's just one of those cases where I think that people just want to make sure they are converting at all costs. So they forget that there's a whole audience group who doesn't even know about the problem that they might have or the product. So again, being in brand side, working with founders in the past, they forget that their product is not everything to everyone, and they assume everyone knows about their product already. So that's basically why we look at awareness levels.
Yeah, I was talking to a brand one time and they're telling me that, man, everyone knows who we are. And I was like, bro, you're only doing 15 million a year. Everybody does not know who you are. Like, you still got to plan for those other parts of the awareness chain. Because yeah, a lot of people do, but not everybody. So you have to, if you
Exactly.
think like that, you start making content for people who don't know, you'll be far more successful.
Exactly. 100%.
All right. So what's next after your process? We talked about mass desire. We talked about awareness levels. Where do we go from there?
So from there, we now want to look at what are we going to now do with all of this information? What are we going to do with this bigger picture? And again, this was something before I systemized it. I was like, what am I going to do with all of this? And I tried to come up with a framework to be able to create some sort of discipline, because creative, we can go on and on and on, and creative can be incredibly subjective. Without key constraints, you really could just miss the mark. So what I like to do then is map everything towards what is our offer. And when I talk about the offer, a lot of people assume promo or discount. I'm talking about what is the tangible product we want to actually focus on. Not all your SKUs, which ones are, at the moment, driving maybe the highest average order value. Maybe it's makes strategic sense to do bundles. It just depends at the time. So the offer is the actual product. Then there's the intangible, which is this connection that the audience should have with the brand. So there's a psychological play here that, again, brands forget about. It's not just your product, it's how you make your audience feel. So that's an intangible piece. And then there's promos, discounts, there's other sorts of promo mechanics I like to refer to that we could totally layer in. So there's 3 elements to the offer. Then I want to look at the audience. Who are we actually now selling this specific product to? And also the intangible. And I like to have 3 personas as a baseline. We can have more if you want, but I don't like having less than 3 personas, because if we also reference Meta Andromeda, we know that there are so many different people out there. We don't want to go too broad. We, of course, need to stay somewhat narrow. But if you have your audience, I guess, target audience as an umbrella, and you go to 3 personas underneath that, I think you're doing the right due diligence to at least try and reach the right mix of awareness levels with the right mix of creative diversity. And why I say that is because different age groups will respond to different forms of media, but there's also a level of thinking about it like a system. So, for example, let me just touch on the age groups. Younger age groups are more likely to respond to video. I know that is
Mm.
assumption-based, but there is data around that. So younger audiences more likely to respond to video. Older audiences are more likely to respond to statics, carousels. Let's think about
Totally.
our parents. Think about our grandparents. So you cannot miss out on having a good set of audience personas, and then that will filter down to content, which I'm going to get to now. Then I just want to speak about what I mentioned. There's a bit of a funnel too. So video is really good at captivating attention. So when you're scrolling, if you've got the right type of video, let me just put that as a caveat. It needs to be the right kind of
Yeah,
video.
right type, good assets, good hook, can't just be any
Exactly.
video.
Exactly. You can capture someone. And that's what I like to use with when I'm trying to think of, okay, cool, our target here is to actually try and get unaware, solution aware, and maybe problem aware. Video is really good at that. I'm not saying that
Mhm.
statics aren't good at that, but think of it like a system. So you
I
might have
find
your video.
statics
Go ahead.
can, but then the page has to do a really good job of completing the rest of
100%.
it. Yeah. Like a listicle and
100%.
advertorial would be required.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And that's where the testing comes in, right? So you can test different assets. So yeah, so video, it does a good job at captivating attention, storytelling. It's what we like to use for the top and middle funnel kind of intent. And then you want to have your statics, because the same person can now see the static a few days later, probably. And that's going to be something that we like to then, the intent would be more middle of funnel, bottom of funnel with the static. But as you mentioned, we can just keep testing and it can still be across the funnel. So I just wanted to speak about audiences, why I do like so many personas there. Then what we have is angles. So we build angles now around the audiences. And just from my experience, I've also heard clients say, yo, we've got these angles, we've got these content pillars, we've got these content themes. And it feels like they're just trying to maybe tick a few boxes of what they've been told to do, what they've maybe heard. I mean, even if I think back to when I was studying Marketing 101, you get told to have content pillars and content themes. But I feel like
Yes.
people forget why. So we build our angles around the audience. And we'll set up some sort of pillar system there too. So probably have about 3 angles. And then that filters us down into content, the content mix. So your angles will answer the question of why do these people even care about what you're selling? And the content is how is it now going to show up in feed? Now it's like passing the Kristan test. What is going to stop that scroll? So then we look at, I touched on it already when I spoke about the audiences, but we look at that content mix. So for this specific campaigner, we're going to go heavier on the video because we have a more unaware and solution aware focus here with maybe 2 static derivatives and 1 carousel derivative. So that's the framework in a nutshell, and that helps me organize what I've just found out from my audit, essentially.
Gotcha. So one question I want to ask you is, I was recently did a training and I loved it about the mood board style creative, the mood board style ad. And I thought it was so great because naturally I would consider myself brand heavy, but you have to be to really get the mood board ad type. And so it made me think of a really great question of like, is there like a framework you go through to understand brand visuals, because that ad crushed, obviously. So how would you convince a founder or talk to a founder about understanding their brand, but not just that, but like the mood board style creative that you came up with? And maybe you could talk about simply like what that creative was, because I'm teasing it, and then how a person can go about understanding those things.
So when it comes to the mood board, honestly, I think my advantage is that I'm chronically online. I'm always I'm always digesting what's happening out there. And then I have an eye for aesthetics. So this is something I struggled with early on in my career, but it's like, this just looks good because it looks good. And I actually got some advice where it was like, that's not good enough. You're not able to train someone if you just say that. You're not able to you actually don't come across as informed in the space if you can't actually break down what it is. So I've been on some sort of pursuit to be able to break that down. And I think what I've come up with is, when it comes to mood boards, you need to be online. You need to be understanding what's happening in the industry and across channels too. Because if you're on TikTok or Reels, for example, you're going to get a really good idea of video style mood board creative that you can then reference. So I get a lot of inspiration from video because I personally find it easier to create your static derivatives from a video. So your video can give you so much inspiration. You can film one video and get like 15 different pieces of content. So I'll start there when it comes to, let's say, video style mood board or references. But Pinterest is amazing at giving you
Mm,
that real mood board vibe where you then grab
yes.
your images and then, of course, just pop it into a beautiful reference to be able to give that to your client. I think to your point, it's so good at also showing the clients in a snapshot if you actually understand their brand, because it's in the word mood board. It makes you feel something. So when you look at let's say the video links and also the, let's say, static mood board, a client will immediately feel like if you actually understand the brand from that, or let's say campaign level, if you understand what they want to achieve or what they want to evoke. And then just on the aesthetic side of things, because I touched on how you can't just say, oh, it looks good. Like, you need to understand what looks good about it. So for me, I would say I've honed the skills in my later years of my career because I've been working with so many types of different content. But if you're always online, you already got the first part of this done. The second element is now dissecting it. So for me, I would even say down to the actual font on the creative, like there's a specific hierarchy, there's specific alignments. I want, the header to perfectly touch the subheader. So it's that detailed and granular that I go into when I look at it. So from font treatment or font hierarchy as well to, again, it makes you feel something when you can see that the font is a little bit more creative than just the standard native font maybe. But even with the native font, paired with calm ambient style music, it plays a little bit towards your feelings there, your emotions there. When it comes to the visuals, I think that there's some basics. If something is filmed on really high quality camera and equipment, and then edited a certain way, you're going to see that. If you've got that level of, I guess, quality assurance, like I've done a lot of quality assurance over my career. So I've been able to see good content
Quality
versus
assurance,
bad
like
content.
creative director type work. Is that what you mean?
Yes, definitely. So, is the person in the middle of the screen and not just off the side of the screen? And if
Yeah.
they're off the side, it's intentional now, not lazy or sloppy. And it comes down to sound design. Sound design complements that aesthetic too. People forget about sound design. You can actually have a very low quality piece of content because it's maybe grainy or pixelated, and if you slap on, like a film treatment and you put some sound design, you've already added so much value to that piece of content. So I would say, yeah, it's probably in the details is the best way to sum it
Okay.
up. And
What I'm hearing you
the
say
way
is
I've had,
composition. Composition is what all those
yes,
things entail. Is that,
correct.
can that be learned? Is that only through experience and being obsessive online like you?
No, you can definitely learn it. I would say when my first job in the industry, we had checklists, and I think that's probably where it started. Is I had specific checklists I had to go through, and I was producing hundreds of campaigns. So I was reviewing so much content that the checklist became second nature. So
Mm,
it's spot on with what you're saying. You don't have to just be always online to get it. That's one element that's good. But I would say get a checklist, review that checklist religiously when you are now reviewing content, and almost challenge yourself when you're online as a consumer. Think like, is this aesthetically pleasing? How would I make this better? I guess it also just comes
yes.
down to like how invested you are then within the content space. Because I think it does come down to a bit of a passion that I have.
Do you have any pet peeves on composition? Oh, you go first and I'll tell you some of my pet peeves.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great question. My pet peeve would 100% be when the font hierarchy is just off. I can't understand how someone can export an asset. It's statics as well. Like you can still get away with video, bad text hierarchy, but a static. I mean, come on. It's so easy to just see it and align it. So that would be a pet peeve. And I would say if I look at a video and it's done really well and they didn't use any sound design, I think that's a pet
Oh,
peeve as well because it adds so much more. Yeah. And your pet peeves?
so pacing is a big pet peeve of mine. I think pacing is really hard to define, but also pacing, also the music choice, especially does the music match the pacing? And then the last one, the one I flip out over is freaking B roll. Like, I If I see another B-roll that looks like they just went to like iStock or Get It, I'm gonna lose my mind. There's so many great things you can do now with B-roll. And not only that, but I think you can get extremely creative with B-roll as well. And I think that's my biggest pet peeve. Like, how does it relate? And it's not what I find, unfortunately, is with B-roll, someone goes to some platform, they type in the word that the person said from the subtitle, and they choose a B-roll. No, like, what are they actually saying? And then how does that B-roll either reinforce it, or I think you'd appreciate this one, or how does it actually complement the mood or the intent? And I think that's when I freaking lose my crap over. So I'm happy to hear your pet peeves. Hierarchy, man, that's a really great one. So I think that's awesome. Last question for you is, I mentioned this in the beginning, but I've seen you work, and I've seen, like I said, you come into accounts, you do the process you said, and then you have a significantly high win rate. It really is just like, it's like watching an artist paint the Picasso. I don't like that kind of art, but like watching, it's just really cool to watch. And I think what everyone is probably wondering, they're probably sitting here and they're a founder themselves and they're thinking, man, like, nothing I do is working. So you talked about your process, but what are just some opportunities you often see in most brands that they miss, that if they just saw those opportunities, it would increase their win rate in their marketing?
I'm always testing. So I don't, pride myself that this is the way it goes. So I think that's the first opportunity, is being open to testing, just being open to doing those creative swings, not being too protective of brand where you do lose the opportunity to test an incredibly
So that was my pet
raw.
peeve, not protected for brand. Thank you for saying something.
Yes, absolutely. So I've definitely seen founders who are willing to sacrifice that opportunity because it goes against brand. And I think that they forget that within the organic space or the brand building space, there is always opportunity to be beautiful, be aesthetic, have your way. But when we're going to go down the road of like testing to actually drive profitable growth, you need to be open to doing those big creative swings. So like I said, the testing is one thing, and that's a bit more of an umbrella piece. I would say more granular would be 100% going straight into content creators, but like the lifestyle content creators, not influencers. You want everyday people like you and me, Ray, talking to people online about what we use, because if someone like you sees you talking about a product that resonates with them, they're not going to think you're being paid for it. But if there's an influencer, they're going to immediately question the authenticity behind that. So I would say that's a really strong opportunity that I'm trying my best with my clients, but they naturally go towards the influencer space. And there's nothing wrong with influencers. My strategy is having like 1 or 2 key anchor influencers and having like 20 content creators. So it's disseminating across different communities who those influencers will probably never reach, because you want that sub community with those everyday content creators. So I'd say that's the second opportunity I see founders should be aware of, is trying their best to get those people. And it's as easy as doing a product exchange. A lot of these content creators want to build their profile too. They don't often want money up front. And if they do, it's a way smaller amount than what influencers want. So yeah, testing content creators that are like everyday UGC style. And then I think I would say founder-led content. And I don't want to just sound like a bit of a broken record here, because I know that a lot of people speak about founder-led content, but I'm talking about like really just connecting with your audience. So you're not preaching to them, but you're connecting with them. And it ties into a bit more of like a raw, authentic style type of filming and editing. You can definitely do the polished piece too, but that's an opportunity a lot of my clients are definitely we're working on, but we're not unfortunately capitalizing on at this point, that I would love to be able to do with them. It's just a case of they almost don't believe it themselves yet, or they're just busy. It's one of those things. But yeah, 3 key opportunities would be big creative swings, so testing always, UGC style creator content, and then founder-led content.
Yep. One thing I would add that has served me quite well is part of our strategy is looking at market sophistication. And market sophistication, if you really take it to the full degree, the full length, is it teaches you, like, in a crowded marketplace, what do you do? And I think one of the greatest exercises any marketer, if it's you or someone else on your team, can go through is go look at every direct competitor who sells your product, take screenshots of mini ads that represent uniqueness, and then also look at similar companies who solve the same problem but not the same product. Take a screenshot of those and look at it. Look at it. If you want to stand out, you can exploit an opportunity. Just don't do what they're doing, because
Amazing.
consumers are already seeing their stuff. What are their visuals? And what we like to do is write down what was the hook they're doing. It may take you several hours. Then we write down what was the positioning. Then we write down how was it shot and what visuals do you see. That's like perfect recipe based off what you're saying. Here's what they're doing. Now don't do that. Talking about big swings, that's what made me think of it.
I love that. And yes, thank you for actually bringing that up. I forgot to mention that earlier. That's in our process too. But yes, spot on. That's a great way to frame that opportunity seeking there.
Well, Kristan, that is it, man. I just want to say it's been awesome watching you work. I think our team has served a lot of value from it, but really just the things that you're bringing to the table, it makes me so happy to see the things that you're doing for our brands, and obviously like they're growing and scaling. So awesome. Thanks for telling us your secret sauce.
Thanks so much, Ray. Really appreciate that. You've set me up for a really good day.
Good.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. See ya.